line of Texans, including Anson Jones, the last president of the Republic of Texas. Her father is from Athens, Texas, and is a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point. Her mother, a former beauty queen and successful real estate agent, is from San Antonio and was educated at Trinity University. Janine and her daughter, Juliet, make their home in Texas on their beloved ranch, Mockingbird Hill. And we're lucky to have Juliet with us tonight, too. Janine's most recent projects are her own radio show, the Janine Turner radio show, Hear the Thunder, currently being podcast on her website, which is JanineTurner.com, and a foundation she created and co-chairs with Kathy Gillespie, Constituting America. It's a foundation devoted to educating American citizens and students about the United States Constitution. Her daughter Juliet is the executive director of Constituting America. She's a freshman at Rice University and is the author of Our Constitution Rocks, Our President Rocks, and a novel. Please welcome Juliet and Janine.
And boy, to follow you is amazing. Thank you for what you're doing to spread the word. I really appreciate that. You know, it's interesting. Oh, is Juliet coming in? It's interesting. Lately, we've noticed that so many people, especially, are asking her, "Where do you live? Where do you live?" But where do you live? I mean, I just bought these boots the other day at Fredericksburg. Aren't they cute? And the guy he kept saying, "Well, where do y'all live? Where do you live?" And I'm always coy. I'm always like, "Oh, you know, North Texas." "Where'd you go? Come on." And then he kept saying, "But where do you live?" But it was kind of freaky. So power to them. It's great out. It's great out what they're doing.
And I'm also in college right now in Houston, and a lot of the churches in the area have been raising awareness about human trafficking in the region. It is really frightening, especially when you're a college student, to hear about this. But I applaud what you're doing and want to support it any way I can.
So hi, it's a thrill to be here with the Tea Partiers. Woo! Okay, we're going to try to touch on a few different topics this morning. I got 1 hour sleep last night. How many Northern Exposure fans are in the audience? Oh, fun! Well, guess what I did this weekend? There was a Northern Exposure reunion at the Austin Film Festival. So Rob Morrow flew in, and Joshua Brand, our creator, and Cynthia Gary, and we're going to be on the Today Show tomorrow morning. So y'all might want to check it out. We've been lobbying, and I think if you continue to pray, if you want it, there may be a reunion show. It should be really fun. So anyway, I got 1 hour sleep last night, so my brain is sort of half awake. But my name is Janine Turner. This is Juliet Turner-Jones, my daughter. We launched Constituting America with Kathy Gillespie in 2010. By the way, Ed's running for governor, and the primary is tomorrow. It's another prayer there in Virginia, the state of Virginia. And I want to talk to you about my Truth Act today, and the page numbers of the bills, the page numbers, and about our contest and the George Washington Initiative. So let's pull out, let me tell you about myself a little bit. I do live on my ranch in North Texas. Oh, there you go. I raise longhorns. Aren't they beautiful? And over there on the top left, that's Revolution and her daughter Liberty. And that was back in, I don't know, 1998 when I did that. And the next slide, I think we have more. Oh, there they are, Revolution and Liberty again. That's my ranch, which, when Northern Exposure was picked up for 50 episodes, I'd always had to live in New York or Los Angeles, and when it was picked up for 50, I'm like, I can go home. So I bought a pickup truck and a horse, and then I bought a ranch. The next slide is, I like to tell the tale of Tiger Bud. We have Tiger Bud up there. Tiger Bud! Isn't he fun? That's Tiger Bud. You're like, well, she just shut up and talk about something substantial. But Tiger Bud, I can call him like a dog, and he'll come walking up to my car. So there he is, poking his head in for a cube. My dad used to say to me, though, Janine, when are you going to get some real cows? I'm like, Dad, these are real cows. So the first. So when my father passed in 2014, I did purchase some Angus, and of course we can't sell any of them because we named them. And the first one is, we named Henry Lee after Richard Henry Lee and Patrick Henry. Give me liberty or give me death. Patrick Henry also said, what are we going to do? Lie supinely on our back, clutching the elusive phantom of hope? Or are we going to be a people of action? Yes, we're people of action. So that's Henry Lee. He's named after. Who could, for a prize, tell me Richard Henry Lee? So it's Patrick Henry and Richard Henry Lee. We named him Henry Lee. Who was Richard Henry Lee?
You get some cool gift cards.
By students who won. Yes. Oh well, that's not.
Go back a little.
What did he do? What was substantial that he did?
He introduced the Declaration for Independence.
Yes. Well, you said he entered it, right?
He's going to enter the resolution.
Yes, the resolution, he put it forth. Very good. John Adams didn't want to do it. Give my hand. Woo! John Adams, have you ever seen the musical 1776? Well, if you haven't, get it. It's perfect for July 4th, perfect to play it's wonderful, 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 and it explains all this so well. But John Adams knew that he was obnoxious and disliked, and if he put forth the resolution, no one would go for it. So he wanted someone from Virginia to do it, and so Richard Henry Lee did it. Anyway, the wife, we don't have a picture of her, but I bought Henry Lee a girlfriend, and her name is Martha Washington. They had a son, which we named Hamilton. And they just had a daughter and we named her Abigail Adams.
Needless to say, I'm not eating beef at the moment.
Yeah, well, there's a story there I won't even tell, but we had to rope the baby recently because she was sick. We couldn't get her into the corral. And the dad, who was across the lane, she started screaming, and the dad across the lane started running the fences and screaming to come to try to rescue her. And the mother, who was standing right there, was circling and very, very nervous. And she went up to the hoofs that were wrapped with rope, like, the rodeo. She started to unravel them. Now you never want to eat beef again, right?
They're Texans, they'll eat beef anywhere.
Okay, so I eat beef, I have to, yeah. So Constituting America. I think we'll start with our impact video. This kind of shows what we do, and then y'all have your folders? We'll do a little homework. So we have that impact video, Bobby. Let's see.
information to young people in an entertaining way, as we've seen through music, through PSAs, through short films, and through speeches. It's all done organically from an entertainment aspect. There's definitely that entertainment aspect in it, and that is where most people are being influenced in.
Inspired by this trip to be more active because I learned that a lot of people don't understand that the Constitution is here to protect our rights, because that's something I really didn't know before the trip. But now that I have that knowledge, I'm more inspired to teach everybody, especially the younger people, because they're the future of our generation in this country.
Sort of in a nutshell what we do. And open up your folders here, and like school, the first thing I want to talk to you about is our contest. And well, we also give these speeches. Okay, I go into schools across the country, here locally. The one thing we would like to ask for you to help us with today is to contact your school. We go into the schools, either Julia when she's in town, or if not, I do. And I actually, teach about the United States Constitution. You can see the quiz that's in here. The green piece of paper is the quiz. Everyone should take it. I know y'all will pass with flying colors. So we go over this quiz with them, but also I show them a lot of these clips from our winners. So kids talk to kids. We sing and dance. We give out prizes. We never talk in these classrooms about party politics, because the United States Constitution is a nonpartisan document. When it was created, the party system did not exist. And of course, it's for everyone. We have kids that win that are Democrats and kids that win that are Republicans, our contest, that is. So you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and part of the reason we started this initiative, the George Washington Speaking Initiative, is because of the lack of knowledge that my generation has about the Constitution because of the gap in the school system. And it's not necessarily the fault of the teachers, it's just, how the curriculum's laid out, the rigors that are placed upon the teachers of everything they have to teach. Having gone through middle school and high school, I had maybe a week of classes total about the Constitution, about American government, and if I hadn't had a mom who taught me about the Constitution and the importance of it, I would have just thought it was a document that, existed. But as the students in this video said, that we need things like music videos and songs and essays and PSAs, commercials that explain why the Constitution is important. And then when we go into the schools, that's what we try to encourage students to understand.
Empower the kids. I always tell them, I want you to feel empowered. When you leave this room, you're going to feel empowered. Now, I also do this nationally over Skype. So a lot of schools have budgets, and they need to deal with the kind of the budgets they have for technology. And so I speak into a lot of schools, but I'm like, I want you to feel empowered. A lot of kids think it's just the Bill of Rights. They don't understand that the Articles 1, 2, and 3 actually, preserve those Bill of Rights. They also think that the only thing they can really do is protest. And what Juliet and I speak about with them is that, and I started this lingo, you have tools in your toolbox. And the Constitution gives you these tools for your toolbox. And I talk about, the checks and balances, treaties, things of that nature. The amendment process. Why don't you tell them about the amendment process?
Right, so what we always tell them is how you can use the rights in the First Amendment that you have, right to petition, right to speech, right to the press, to then push for an amendment. You're probably thinking, like, what does that mean? Well, I did a lot of research for my book when I was writing about the Constitution, and the 27th Amendment was actually instigated, the process was instigated by a 19-year-old at the University of Texas. He researched, there were originally 12 Bill of Rights, and 2 of them didn't pass, and written by James Madison. And one of them was that congressmen and women could not vote to raise their pay and have it go into effect in the same session. So this young gentleman by the name of Gregory Watson, who was 19 at the time, wrote an essay on this and how this amendment should come to pass. He got a C on the paper and it made him really mad. So then he contacted his other teachers, his friends, his parents, and they all agreed. Eventually he contacted his representative, so there we have the freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. And he, was able to use the press as well and called his representative and said this needs to happen. And it took several years, but eventually it became the 27th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
When the kids think they're too young and they're like, oh, well, this is something adults do, we teach them that, look what Gregory Watson did, and he was 19 at the University of Texas.
And it's concrete steps that kids can take. Because, my mom was talking about how everyone says, oh, protest, which is something really interesting that's happened recently. It used to be, what does Constitution mean? Oh, freedom of speech. But more and more, when I hear my mom speaking over Skype or when we're speaking to schools, they just say freedom of protest, which I found really interesting. And I talked with one of my good friends from Rice, and he was talking about the protests that were closing down the streets during the Super Bowl down in Houston. And I said, they have the right to protest, of course, I'm not saying that, but I wish, they call their representatives and do something else. And, he said to me, he's like, no, they only have the ability to protest. I'm like, no, they don't. They can do more. And so that's what we're trying to teach these kids at a young age to do. So instead of just being a noisy wheel, being a force for change.
And also we teach them how to Google who their representative is by Googling who represents me. We talk to them about local elections, state elections, how in New York City they said you couldn't get a large, big gulp or salt on the restaurant tables and how so it's really amazing what we do with them. One of the things I do talk with them about, and I'll move on to our contest, and I'll talk to you about a couple of my petitions. When I get to is the Constitution for Democrats and Republicans, because I know today a lot of people think that the Constitution is just this Tea Party document, And so we put this question in there, and one of the things, then I talk about George Washington's farewell address. And I teach them that farewell address is read every year on the Senate floor. And I said, in that farewell address, George Washington said that the party system would be the demise of America because people would care more about their party than about being an American. And kids today, as we all know, especially when they get older and into college, they don't want to hear anybody else's point of view. So I talk to them about, what, if you're strong, if you believe strongly what you believe, it's okay to listen to what someone else believes. That's what it means to be an American, is to have a conversation and not shut people out. It's okay. And that unity. And I talk about how in Iraq, they have won. In Afghanistan, they declared independence, they won the war, but they have not been able to keep it because they're so tribal they cannot unite. And how the Declaration of Independence was a unifying document, that they needed it to know what they were fighting for. George Washington needed it to be able to bring the troops together for war. And that's what we need to do as Americans. And they get very quiet when I talk about that. And I think, one child at a time through these classes, we're having an impact. There is something that we do that no other foundation does. A lot of foundations go in and say, here's your quiz or whatever, and you get a nice little pat on the back or a certificate. Okay, so we have a contest. Elementary, middle school, high school, college, adults even. And what we have is multi-tiered. The first level is that they enter our contest by September 17th, which is Constitution Day. Yes, very good. I knew all that. Constitution Day. And what they can do, best song, best public service announcement, best essay, best commercial, best short film. But we also opened it up to STEM, because we didn't want to leave the math kids, the kids that are STEM oriented. So last year was this summer was our first year. We had kids that did marketing plans and computer games and
a full website.
Yeah, websites for us. So photography. We go to inner city schools, we go into charter schools, we go into public schools, we go into home schools, we've just aligned with the National Boy Scouts and the National Boys and Girls Clubs. So we really go in everywhere. So once they enter, if they win, they get prizes, but they also get this amazing trip. And you saw some of that in the video. We take them what we call mentor trips. We've taken them to Philadelphia, New York City, Washington, D.C., where else? Nashville, Hollywood. And they met one year with Gary Sinise a couple of years ago from Forrest Gump. You know Gary Sinise. And they went on a set and had lunch with him. The filmmakers did. They've been behind the scenes at Handy, at Brett Baer, at the major newspapers across the country. If they're song winners, we take them to Nashville. We re-record their songs. So it's an amazing trip when they meet a mentor in the field, because we want this ripple effect into the community where they go out and they know and they understand the Constitution. We speak to them about the Constitution. We have constitutional scholars come in and speak with them. And then they're going to spread that within their field, into the culture. Really, really important with the works that they do. The third thing that we do after this amazing trip, which is 2 nights, 3 days, sometimes it's 2 days, 1 night, but when we take them, they have this jam-packed, this one they had behind the scenes at Universal Studios and things of that nature, behind the scenes at Disney Studios. They meet with mentors that have done La La Land and Hidden Figures and editors and things of that nature. But then we also, the third tier is we promote their works. So if you look in your folder, you can see that we're actually promoting the kids' works. Our public service announcement that I'm getting ready to show you, we joined forces with the Knights of Columbus as well. Her PSA, she was in high school when she did it, has reached 5.9 million households. Her works, not Madison Avenue. The song that you heard underneath this clip that we showed you, she's one of our song winners. We hired a company out of Nashville to promote her song. And she actually has now had 24 million impressions of her song about the Bill of Rights over 65 cities and 65 radio, 65 radio stations. 24 million impressions of her song. So we really are moviegoers. We have a lot of great short films this year, a lot of great PSAs. You can go see these at constitutingamerica.org. But we enter them into film festivals, and they've actually, it's hard to get in, it's hard to enter, but they are getting accepted into these film festivals, and some of them win. And the winners that have won mentorships in STEM, we're going to start running their works on YouTube. It's just amazing. So we do 2 things. We give them a certificate, they get this amazing paid-for trip with a chaperone, and then also we promote their works to the culture. So it's a really, really cool gig. Okay, now, in essence of time, I'm going to shift gears. Do you want to see one of the 2 winning PSAs real quick? They're only a minute. Okay, so this is Laura Lee Hicks. This is the Barack Obama School of Male Leadership. If I have time, I'll show you their clip. They won Best Song and Best Rap Song. They performed on Good Morning Texas. And we are getting ready to take them to Tomball, Texas for our 4th of July. They're going to perform for 4th of July down there. But this is Laura Lee Hicks.
Something that you were given, something you loved, something that others wanted so badly but were denied it, something that you used and relied on every single day. If you had something special, something beautiful, something powerful, if you had something absolutely essential to securing your health, happiness, and safety, if you treasured something so much that you were willing to die for that something, if you knew that others already had, and if someone had given you a document that protected that something, wouldn't you take the time to read it?
She says, Mom, my PSA is playing on TV. That was Laura Lee Hicks. 5.9 million households now have seen this. And this is our new winner this year. She's our college winner from Utah. And hers is really fantastic, too. And another foundation that we work with, they want to steal her from us because they have her start working for them because she's so amazing. Emily?
Emily Kinsmiller is her name.
Do you know what constitutes our Constitution? This living document that's a fusion of our forefathers' vision for the future of this nation. We have a Bill of Rights. We're not built for these rights, but we've been given these rights because we live. We don't have to pay every day when we don't watch what we say. A penny for our thoughts is not what we give, but we give off our thoughts by the way that we live. And there are soldiers who've died, men and women who've paid the price, in the blink of an eye given their lives to make our lives nice. And we can't fight to preserve these rights, to reach new heights, get through the darkest nights together if we don't know. We the people, we the future, can't make it right if we don't show an interest in learning the script that governs our lives. So forgive me if I'm wrong, but if you belong to this country, then there are rights that belong to you so long as you do one thing. You know your Constitution and your freedom that it brings. You can't fight for what's right. You can't find a flaw if you've never shed light on the supreme law of the land. The land of the free and the home of the brave requires your knowledge and God's good grace in order to save our human race in the face of terror. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you need to choose what you're going to do because you could lose everything.
Democrats and Republican winners, and we gave our speech and we talked about, you know, listen to what other people have to say. It's okay. That's what it means to be an American, and tell them what happened in the conversation that we're having.
It was really interesting because they had this amazing trip that was fully paid for, all these, you know, bells and whistles. And what did they say their favorite part was? The car drive where they got to talk to each other about politics. And I'm like, okay, but that was what we had told them to do. And so that's, you know, my generation, I'm the millennial generation, we get a really bad rap for not wanting to, you know, engage in the things that are important, or we don't listen, or we tweet everything, which we do, that's okay, you know. But we listen. And so that's what we realized at Constituting America, is if we tell people my age, I do listen.
You listen, but do millennials listen?
Yes, we do. Because I've seen it on our trip.
Yeah, we saw it on the trip. Yeah.
We told them, go talk to people you don't agree with, and they did. And they said that was their favorite part, where they were able to have a discussion because they realized that they could agree upon the fact that the Constitution was important, and the Constitution needed to be read, to be spread through our nation. And they took that foundation and then were able to discuss other topics upon
well, especially when we gave them the challenge, and we said, hey guys, you know, listen to other people's points of view. Okay, so I've been given a clock. That's really scary.
That's until Q&A.
Until Q&A. Oh, good. I feel like Bette Midler of the Tonys. Did anybody watch that last night? Did anybody watch that? She just kept talking and talking. Okay, so do you want to see the clip from the Barack Obama School for Male Leadership, the young men who won, or do you want me to start talking about my Truth Act? Let's raise your hand. Okay, then I'll whiz through my Truth Act. So these are the young men that won for the Barack Obama School. It was really amazing. Juliet and I both gave 2 speeches, an hour and a half each. And I played an example of a winner that won the year before for a rap song. And we talked, we could talk an hour and a half. So we got into the amendment process and all kinds of detail-oriented things with them. And so by the time we finished the second speech for an hour and a half, 3 young men came back into the room at the end of the day and said, we have a song for you. And they played this song. We have celebrity judges, and they won. So this is their trip. Many of them had never even been on an airplane. And this is their first trip, and we're getting ready to take them to Tomball to perform as well, which is near Houston.
Also, one best song for Constituting America.
I'm Kirk Taylor. I'm 15. I was also one of the winners.
When we first met Juliet and Janine, they came to our classroom during the 6th period. I was like, that sounds good, we can do that. And then she said something about some money, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna do that for sure. So then I have 7th period with Kirk Taylor, so, you know, 7th period, I was like, bro, I need you to sing for me. And he was like, okay, you know, what was singing for? Then I went to Caleb during passing period, and I was like, I need you to rap for me. And so that's how we basically got it together. And then 7th period, we came up with the chorus, and then we just had him write a verse about the Constitution, and we just pieced it all together and just, you know, just turned it into an 8th period, and just was like, hey, here's a song. And it won.
Yeah, they came to me like right after that. It was like only 10 minutes left in class.
All the authors of this document, amendments, keeping free out the penitence, doing sentences, Washington, Hamilton, Jefferson, Franklin, got hundreds in my pocket, so you know I ain't with it.
I think a big way that we're going to take it back to our community is by showing people youth are strong. Music does change the world, and music influences people, and they catch on fast and strong. So yeah.
Constitution applies to like a lot of situations. I really thought that the Constitution was kind of like just the Bill of Rights, that was like the main thing. But everything in the Constitution is like very important, and it applies to a lot of situations, even situations that we're facing in our society now. So it still has a big impact.
But the thing that I learned when we spoke to the government doesn't give us our rights. So that means that the government can't take it away, and that's a big part of what we need to know. We're born with our rights. So if anyone thinks that they have the power to take it away, if you have knowledge, you don't have to confine to any idea.
she gave us the opportunity to shine, and she made us feel important.
Everything's very professional, and how we could, you know, have such creative freedom with the song. And
yeah, we got so much energy from when she recreated our beat. And it was like, dang, she really did that. We didn't think it was gonna be done. It just making us feel important. She cleared time together, and that's part of the time. It made us feel like, you know, we did something important for everybody, especially how we would want to represent the Constitution in the way that we do music personally. So I just wanted to thank everybody that picked us and everybody that felt like we were a good fit to be winners.
And the judges, Janine, Kathy, everybody, because this wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for people like them trying to spread the message of the Constitution, giving our youth the knowledge needs, you know, so they can be knowledgeable of their rights and freedom.
Giving youth a shield of knowledge, because doing this program itself, not just cooking us, but doing the program itself, it'll help people. And it's up for me to enter in this competition to realize that the Constitution is important. And I feel like it'll take us long enough to hear our songs and the other songs that were made for them to actually understand the true purpose of the Constitution and what it does for each and every person.
Teamwork makes the dream work. You mean hard fun?
Are they great? Their song is now on Spotify and iTunes. It's in our album. And as I said, y'all watch Good Morning Texas sometimes, right? So they would perform on that. Okay, I'm going to talk in about 2.5 minutes about my Truth Act. So if you go in to your handy dandy folder, and I'm going to talk to you about the white paper. By the way, Dwayne Horner is here. He's worked with Constituting America for a very long time. We love him. Stand up, Dwayne. And you're here with the judge. You know everybody here, right? Yeah. There you go. Okay, so here we go. Truth Act. You see that there? Now, one of the reasons I started Constituting America is because I read the Constitution to Juliet in a hammock. And
my spring break, mind you.
Yeah, and kids were texting her saying, "Hey, I just want to run to Six Flags." And she said, "Hey, I just read the Constitution." But afterwards, I'm like, what do they mean by that? What exactly do they mean by that? So I started listening to a seminar, and I heard from the corner, I was walking around the room, this Federalist paper 62. At the time, I didn't really know what that meant. But now I do, because I've written 85 essays on the 85 Federalist Papers. But it says, it will be of little avail to the people that the laws are made by men of their own choice, if the laws be so voluminous that they cannot be read, or so incoherent that they cannot be understood. I think we're dealing with that today, right? So I decided, with Juliet and I were driving the back streets of our ranch, and we came up with an acronym, TRUTH. And I said, we really need to limit the page numbers of these bills because none of us understand what's going on. And that's why I realized the relevancy of our founding fathers today. So we came up with 30. So here it is. The T stands for, and you can get, by the way, if you want to book a speech for Constituting America, you go to constitutingamerica.org and hit the book a speech button. If you want to download a flyer, that's on our website as well. So to make this, keep the bills 30 pages or less. I know you're thinking, ha ha ha, right? But just wait. Your 5th grade reading level, so the American people can understand it. The R, we need to make sure that our legislators are reading the bills.
Novel idea.
Yeah. U, that they understand the bills. T, that they testify under oath before they vote that they have read and understood the bills. I walked this on the hall. Yeah, right? I shot this on the hill. I got a little pushback from the testify under oath part. But like, why? It should be done. And the H is that we hear it. You know, Thomas Jefferson believed that the bill should be out for an entire year before we had a chance to vote, which isn't realistic today. But we need to hear them on the internet. We need time to respond. Otherwise, what's going on? So I shot this on the hill with Kathy Gillespie, and Juliet was with me. And we took it to Chairman McCall, we took it to Congressman Fred Wolf. Fred, isn't it? Is it Frank? Frank, I'll go with her. You should know, right? Anyway, then we took it to Congressman Culberson. And he's put in my lap, a book this big. He said, this is the new immigration bill. It was like 3 yellow pages. He goes, open it up. Because they all love this idea, by the way. I opened it up, and it was filled with legal code. I had no idea. It's, subparagraph this, subparagraph that, according to law, this. I'm like, how could anyone even understand this? There's no, and so what's happening is the staffers are running around trying to figure out what these codes are. No one understands. And he said, then he handed me another book. He goes, look at this book. And he handed me another book about the same size. He goes, this is the book with the amendments. But they don't show us where the amendments are. So voluminous we can't understand. It's such incoherency. So then during the Affordable Care Act, another congressman I met with told me that they would search like the word abortion or something of that nature. They couldn't find anything in the Affordable Care Act because they changed the word. So it wouldn't be easily definable. What kind of government are we running if our representatives can't understand what's in it? Then if so, even if they could, they don't have time to read these incredibly big bills. And then we certainly can't understand it. So it's of no avail for any of us to even elect men of our own choice if none of us know what's going on. So when I met with one congressman, he said to me, you know what? Go check out all this big signature pieces of legislation and see how many pages they were. So I said, okay, let's do that. So this is the, when you get home, I encourage you to read this, it's just amazing. Long and little known how incoherent statutes harm liberty and the rule of law. I co-wrote this white paper here. And now, I want to walk you through this, which is truly, tell them about Caligula.
Sure, this is one of my favorite parts of the white paper.
You have to find the light.
I will find the light.
Like an actress.
But, so Caligula, who was this terrible, terrible Roman emperor, as we all know, he would paste the laws that were passed very high up in the columns so that no one could read them and say, oh, but they're there for you to see, ha ha. And so that's kind of what's happening in our government today. The parallel was drawn in this white paper that, of course, they're not high up on the Roman columns, but they're so dense and so long that, sure, it might be out on the internet for us to read somewhere, somehow, but we can't do it.
Exactly. Okay, in essence of time. So, go to page 2. In this white paper, and look at the bottom here. You'll find this. Now, first when I read through this, you're going to say, well, that's just because the country was in the beginning stages, but just wait. The Judiciary Act of 1789 established the judicial, this is the third paragraph down on page 2, established the judicial courts of the United States, 21 typed pages. The act establishing a uniform rule of naturalization in 1790, which is about immigration, took less than 2 pages of text. Congress repealed and replaced that act in 1795, again requiring just 2 pages to do so. Now, as the nation grew exponentially through the 19th century, laws were passed accordingly, but even significant legislation like the National Banking Act of 1863, so we're moving on up here, provided for and regulated national currency, took Congress 18 pages. Okay, now, Federal Reserve Act of 1913, creating our modern Federal Reserve System, 25 pages. Monumental 20th century reforms like the Social Security Act of 1935, less than 30 pages of text. So now you get to the Clean Air Act of 1963, 10 pages, 1963. The Clean Water Act of 1972, 88 pages, now starting. So I wasn't far off with my 30. Was I? And I was just looking for an acronym. Isn't that not amazing that the bills until like the 70s and 80s used to be that small? Where we could actually all understand them. So I encourage you to maybe sign my petition, download this flyer, spread the word, call your representative, because they're starting to talk about doing bills in sort of 100-page chunks instead of these 2,700-page bills or even more.
And you might have already mentioned this, but something else that we're pushing for in this is a single subject bill, because there's so many pieces of legislation being passed today or put forth today that have to do with so many different things that it makes no sense for them to be, put together, but they are.
Yeah, I was talking about this up in Gainesville, and a judge came up to me afterwards and says, well, that's fine and dandy to get the bill small. What do you do about the laws? And I'm like, well, let's deal with one thing first. So if I had more time, I'd talk about the treaty situation. I just would have to say this real quick, because I have 4, this is supposed to be Q&A, but I just want to talk about this. You know the Iranian deal. Okay. So, checks and balances. When we're asleep at the wheel, we just don't pay attention to what's going on, especially when they rename things. Any treaty, I looked up a treaty in the Federalist Papers, according to John J. Alexander Hamilton and James Madison. A treaty is simply any document with a foreign nation. Any document with a foreign nation is called a treaty. So what's happening now is that presidents, and this didn't start with Obama, it's been happening with Republicans and Democrats over the past few decades, they go and they say, well, this isn't a treaty, this is an executive agreement. It's not a treaty, so it doesn't have to be ratified by the Senate according to Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2. They just changed the name. Now, of course, it's not, it can be changed by the next president and all that, but what if it's never changed back? We have lost our power. We're giving one man the power to go over and do a treaty under another name. So these are the things, this is where Patrick Henry would say, are we going to be a people of action, or are we going to rely supinely on our backs, clutching the elusive phantom of hope? So let's think about this for a minute. President Obama goes over with his team and they do this executive agreement with Iran. Well, then Congress gets really nervous and they say, well, we need to look at it. We just really need to look at it. Let's do a bill that we get to look at it. And I'm thinking, well, that's absurd. How about Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2, it goes to the Senate and it's approved by the Senate, the way it's supposed to be approved by the Senate. But suddenly they're wanting to run around and do this bill so they could look at it because the name had been changed, but it really was a treaty. If someone had just insisted it was a treaty, they could say just send it through the Senate. So they do this bill, which was crazy. I actually did a petition and put it up at gopetition.com because this made absolutely no sense. I called senators, I called around. So what happens, so they passed a bill, they did a bill. When you have a bill, what happens to the bill? What goes along the line? Veto! So the president has the power to go do the bill, and now the president has the power to veto it. The treaty. The president is now going over and doing a treaty, and then when you do a bill to look at it, you've given the power back to the president, so there's absolutely zero check. I'm like, why are they doing that? It's absurd. So it's just one of those examples of checks and balances where we think sort of everything's okay, but it's really not because they're changing the name. I called one particular senator, and he said to me, oh, there are just so many treaties, we don't have time.
Checks and balances.
Make time. But the final story I'll tell is I ran into a senator at an airport, I won't say who, and he says, well, I've got to hurry back because we're dealing with the Iranian treaty, the Iranian, whatever they call it, the executive agreement. I said, oh, speaking of that, why are y'all doing that? It should have just gone through the Senate according to Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2. Why is this now a bill that gives the power back to the president? And he said to me, he looked around and said, I wonder where my wife is. He just wanted to get away from me. But this is one of the examples where I think we have to just wake up, and y'all are the Tea Party I love because y'all are so awake. But it's just one of these examples, and if you teach this to kids, and I talk about this with the kids, they go, oh, that's what a check and balance is. This is why these things matter. Because I always say to them, what's the worst thing who would you not want the president to go over and make a deal with right now? Yeah, I have them give me something, and they'll say, oh, North Korea. And I'm like, well, what deal would be horrible if the president wouldn't have made that deal? He gave away all of our weapons. I'm like, right. Well, right now, a president could go over and do that, not call it a treaty, and come back and say, I had a deal. No check. That's why, if we don't know what's in the United States Constitution, we have no power to know if what we're being spoon-fed is actually true or not. And that's how I feel that's one of the things I love to share, and that's one of the things we work with the kids. Okay, 14 seconds for questions. I'm gonna sweat up here. Are y'all hot, or is it just me? Well, I know it. Other questions?
I don't know, does anybody have questions? We can maybe take a few. I know we started you late because we have so many candidates here tonight, but if there are questions, we'll take a few.